Every great victory begins with a battle that no one else can see. At exactly 5 a.m., a phone alarm echoed through a quiet room. A young man named Arjun slowly opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. For a few seconds, he smiled because he remembered the promise he had made to himself before going to bed. Tomorrow, everything changes. He had written 4 goals in his notebook: wake up at 5, exercise for 30 minutes, study English for 2 hours, and stay away from social media until breakfast. It looked like the perfect plan. For a moment, he believed this would finally be the day he took control of his life. Then something happened. A voice quietly whispered inside his mind. "You're still tired. 5 more minutes won't hurt. You can always start tomorrow." It didn't sound dangerous. It didn't sound like an enemy. In fact, it sounded reasonable. Arjun closed his eyes. When he opened them again, it was 8:26 a.m. The alarm had stopped. The sunlight had filled the room. His notebook was still lying on the table, but the goals written on that page had already become another broken promise. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. This wasn't the first time it had happened. It had happened yesterday. It had happened last week. It had happened last month. Every Sunday night he became a new person. Every Monday morning he became the old one again. If you've ever promised yourself that this time will be different but somehow ended up repeating the same habits, then you already know exactly how Arjun felt. Not lazy. Not stupid. Just trapped. That evening, unable to stop thinking about his life, Arjun went for a long walk. His mind was filled with questions. Why can't I stay disciplined? Why do I always quit halfway? Why do some people change their lives while I keep starting over? As he walked through a quiet park, he noticed an old man sitting alone on a wooden bench, calmly watching the sunset. The old man looked at Arjun and smiled. "You look like someone carrying a very heavy bag." Arjun looked around. "I don't have a bag." The old man chuckled. "I'm not talking about your shoulders. I'm talking about your mind." For a moment, Arjun stood silent. Then he slowly sat beside him. "I think something is wrong with me," he admitted. "I make plans every day, but I never follow them. I know what I should do, but I don't do it. It's like there's another person inside my head stopping me." The old man nodded as if he had heard those words 1,000 times before. "There is another person inside your head," he said. "But he's not your enemy. He's the person you've been training for years." Arjun frowned. "I don't understand." The old man bent down, picked up 2 tiny seeds from the ground, and placed them on his palm. "Imagine these are planted in 2 different gardens," he said. "The first garden is watered every single day. The second is completely ignored. After 1 year, which garden will be beautiful?" "The first one," Arjun replied without hesitation. "Exactly." The old man smiled. "Now replace those gardens with your mind. Every thought you repeat is a seed. Every habit you repeat is water. Every excuse you accept is fertilizer. And every action you take decides what grows inside your mind." Arjun looked at the tiny seeds resting in the old man's hand. He had never thought about his mind that way. The old man continued. "Most people believe success is created by one big decision. It isn't. They think rich people became rich because of one lucky opportunity. They think athletes became champions because of one perfect performance. They think confident people were simply born that way." He gently closed his hand around the seeds. "But the truth is much simpler. Success is built by ordinary decisions repeated on ordinary days. The day you don't feel like studying but study anyway. The day you don't feel like exercising but still show up. The day nobody is watching, nobody is clapping, and nobody even knows you're trying. Those are the days that build extraordinary people." Arjun felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he realized that his biggest problem wasn't a lack of motivation. It was the habits he had quietly repeated for years. The old man stood up and brushed the dust from his clothes. Before leaving, he turned back and asked one final question. If someone copied every decision you make for the next 12 months, would they end up living the life you dream of? Or the life you're trying to escape? The question hit Arjun harder than anything he had ever heard. He couldn't answer. Because deep inside, he already knew the truth. That night, he didn't write a new list of goals. Instead, he wrote a single sentence across the top of a blank page. My life is not controlled by my dreams. It is controlled by my daily decisions. As he closed the notebook, he looked out of the window. For the first time in years, he stopped blaming his circumstances. He stopped blaming luck. He stopped blaming time. Instead, he asked himself one question. If my mind has been trained to work against me, can it also be trained to work for me? He didn't know the answer yet. But somewhere inside his brain, a completely new journey had already begun. And that journey would reveal something most people never discover. Your mind is always listening. Even when you think nobody else is. Part 2, Your mind is always listening. The next morning, Arjun woke up before the alarm. It wasn't because he had suddenly become disciplined. It wasn't because he felt motivated. It was because one question had stayed in his mind all night. If my mind has been trained to work against me, can it also be trained to work for me? He got out of bed, made a cup of tea, and sat near the window. The city was slowly waking up. Cars began to fill the streets. People rushed to work. Birds flew across the morning sky. Everything outside looked exactly the same. But something inside him had changed. For the first time in years, he wasn't searching for motivation. He was searching for understanding. That evening, he returned to the same park. The old man was there again, sitting on the same bench with a book in his hands. I knew you would come back, the old man said with a smile. Arjun looked surprised. How? Because people who truly want to change don't stop after hearing one answer. They come back with better questions. Arjun sat beside him. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. The old man closed his book. And what did you discover? Arjun looked down at the ground. I realized I've spent years blaming my circumstances. I blamed my family. I blamed my financial condition. I blamed bad luck. But I never blamed the way I think. The old man smiled. That's because the mind is invisible. If your arm is broken, everyone can see it. But if your thinking is broken, most people never notice. He picked up a stick lying near the bench and began drawing a straight line in the sand. Imagine this is a road. The first time a car drives on it, nothing happens. The second time, still nothing. But imagine thousands of cars driving on the exact same road every single day. What happens? Arjun answered immediately. The road becomes permanent. Exactly. The old man nodded. Your thoughts work the same way. Every time you repeat a thought, your brain strengthens that pathway. If every morning you wake up thinking, I am lazy. I am unlucky. I always fail. Your brain slowly accepts those thoughts as facts. Arjun interrupted him. But they're not facts. The old man smiled. I know. But your brain doesn't care whether a thought is true. It only cares whether it's repeated. Silence filled the air. Arjun remembered something. When he was in school, one teacher had once laughed at his English in front of the entire class. Everyone else laughed too. From that day, he stopped speaking English whenever possible. For years, he believed he wasn't good at it. Not because it was true. Because he had repeated that belief thousands of times. The old man looked at him. You remembered something, didn't you? Arjun slowly nodded. I've been carrying one sentence for years. I'm not good enough. The old man leaned forward. And how many times have you repeated that sentence inside your head? I don't know. Hundreds. Thousands. Arjun didn't answer. He already knew. The old man continued. Now imagine another person. Every morning that person says, I can learn. I can improve. I may not be there yet, but I'm getting better every day. Who do you think will grow faster? The second person, Arjun replied. Exactly. Not because they are more talented. But because they are training their brain differently. The old man stood up and pointed toward a small child who was learning to ride a bicycle. The boy fell. He stood up. He tried again. He fell again. He stood up again. After several attempts, he finally rode a few meters without falling. The child laughed with excitement. The old man smiled. Did you notice something? He never said. Maybe cycling isn't for me. He simply tried again. Children aren't born fearless. They simply haven't learned to doubt themselves yet. Arjun watched the child riding in circles. He suddenly realized that somewhere along the way, he had learned fear. He had learned self-doubt. He had learned excuses. And if those things could be learned, maybe they could also be unlearned. The old man looked directly into Arjun's eyes. Listen carefully. Your mind is always listening. It listens when you complain. It listens when you make excuses. It listens when you break promises to yourself. And every time you do, it quietly updates your identity. If you keep quitting, your brain starts believing you're someone who quits. If you keep showing up, your brain starts believing you're someone who finishes. Identity is not created by what you dream. It is created by what you repeatedly do. Those words echoed inside Arjun's mind. For years, he had been waiting to feel confident before taking action. Now he understood the truth. Confidence wasn't the beginning of the journey. It was the reward for staying on the journey. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees, the old man picked up his book and smiled. Tomorrow, I'll tell you why your brain loves comfort more than success. And once you understand that, you'll never look at procrastination the same way again. Arjun walked home with a completely different feeling. For the first time, he wasn't hoping his life would change. He was beginning to understand how to change it himself. Part 3, The Comfort Trap. The next evening, Arjun reached the park earlier than usual. This time, he wasn't carrying questions. He was carrying curiosity. The old man was already there, feeding a few birds. As Arjun walked closer, the old man smiled without even turning around. You came 10 minutes early today. Arjun laughed. I didn't want to miss anything. The old man threw the last handful of seeds onto the ground and stood up. Good. Because today we're going to talk about the most dangerous addiction in the world. Arjun looked confused. Social media. The old man shook his head. No. Comfort. They started walking along a quiet path inside the park. After a few minutes, the old man asked. If I offered you 2 chairs, which one would you choose? The comfortable one, Arjun answered. Exactly. Every human being chooses comfort. There is nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when comfort becomes your lifestyle. He stopped walking and pointed toward a butterfly resting on a flower. Do you know how that butterfly was born? Arjun nodded. It came out of a cocoon. Yes. But do you know why nature makes the butterfly struggle before it can fly? Arjun remained silent. The struggle pushes fluid into its wings. If someone cuts open the cocoon to make life easier for the butterfly, it survives. But it never flies. The struggle it tried to avoid was actually preparing it for freedom. The old man looked directly at Arjun. Life works exactly the same way. The workout you avoid. The difficult conversation you postpone. The book you refuse to read. The discipline you keep delaying. They are all building the wings you'll need tomorrow. For the first time, Arjun understood that difficulty wasn't punishment. It was preparation. They continued walking. After a few minutes, the old man asked another question. What do you do when you feel stressed? Arjun answered honestly. I scroll through my phone. And when you're bored? I watch videos. And when you're tired? I sleep. The old man smiled. Exactly. You've trained your brain to escape every uncomfortable feeling. Instead of solving boredom, you distract yourself. Instead of facing stress, you hide from it. Instead of building discipline, you search for entertainment. Arjun looked down. Everything the old man was saying described his life perfectly. The old man picked up a small stone and threw it into a nearby lake. Tiny circles spread across the water. Every action creates another action. When you choose comfort once, it becomes easier to choose it again. When you avoid hard work once, your brain remembers the escape. And slowly, comfort becomes your default setting. They reached a staircase inside the park. The old man stopped. Let's make this simple. Which is easier? Walking up the stairs. Or walking down? Walking down, Arjun replied. Exactly. Your brain is designed to save energy. It naturally chooses the easier path. That's why waking up early feels difficult. That's why studying feels difficult. That's why exercising feels difficult. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is trying to protect energy. He smiled. The problem is, your brain is designed for survival. But your dreams require growth. And survival and growth are rarely found in the same place. Those words stayed in Arjun's mind. For years he believed something was wrong with him because discipline felt hard. Now he realized. It feels hard for everyone. The difference is that successful people don't wait for comfort. They act despite discomfort. The old man sat on another bench. Have you ever noticed what happens after you finish a difficult workout? Arjun nodded. I actually feel better. And after finishing a chapter you didn't want to study? I feel proud. The old man smiled. That's because your brain rewards effort. But only after you've done it. Most people are waiting to feel motivated before taking action. They don't realize motivation usually arrives after action. You don't feel like running. So you don't run. But the runner runs first. And then feels alive. You don't feel like studying. So you don't study. But the student studies first. And then feels confident. Action creates emotion. Not the other way around. Arjun suddenly remembered all the days he had waited for motivation. He realized he had been waiting for something that was supposed to come later. The old man continued. Imagine a blacksmith making a sword. He places cold steel into the fire. Then he hits it again. And again. And again. If the steel could speak, it would probably believe it was being destroyed. But the blacksmith knows something the steel doesn't. It isn't being destroyed. It's being transformed. He looked at Arjun and smiled. Maybe life has been doing the same thing to you. Every failure. Every rejection. Every difficult morning. Every challenge. They weren't there to break you. They were shaping the person you're capable of becoming. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The evening breeze moved gently through the trees. Finally, the old man asked one last question. Tell me honestly. If success required 1 hour of discomfort every single day, would you pay that price? Arjun didn't answer immediately. He thought about every excuse he had ever made. Every promise he had broken. Every opportunity he had wasted. Then he looked up. This time, I would. The old man smiled. I believe you. But tomorrow, your mind won't. It will tell you to sleep. It will tell you to quit. It will tell you to wait. And that is where your real test begins. As Arjun walked home, he realized something powerful. The battle was never between him and the world. It was always between the person he was and the person he had the potential to become. Tomorrow morning, the alarm would ring again. But this time, the outcome would depend on which voice he decided to obey. Part 4, The Day Arjun Stopped Waiting. The next morning, the alarm rang at exactly 5 a.m. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Then the familiar voice returned. You're still tired. You slept late. Missing 1 day won't make a difference. Arjun smiled. A week ago, he would have believed every word. Today, he simply listened. For the first time, he realized something important. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean you have to obey it. He slowly sat up, turned off the alarm, drank a glass of water, and walked outside. The air was cold. The streets were almost empty. Every step felt uncomfortable. But something strange was happening. The voice inside his head was becoming quieter. Not because it had disappeared. Because he had stopped feeding it. As he reached the park, the old man was already there, watching the sunrise. You woke up, the old man said. Arjun smiled. My mind told me not to. And yet you're here. The old man nodded with satisfaction. Then today you've learned the first rule of mental strength. You don't have to believe every thought your mind produces. They began walking together. The old man pointed toward the sky. Look at those clouds. Arjun looked up. They keep moving. Exactly. Thoughts are like clouds. They appear. They disappear. But people make one huge mistake. They think they are their thoughts. If a thought says, I'm not good enough, they immediately believe it. If a thought says, I can't do this, they accept it as reality. But a thought is only a suggestion. It is not the truth. Arjun stayed quiet. The old man continued. Imagine you're sitting beside a busy road. Hundreds of cars pass every minute. Do you jump into every car? Of course not. You simply watch them pass. The same should happen with your thoughts. Observe them. Question them. But don't automatically follow them. For the first time, Arjun understood that controlling the mind didn't mean stopping negative thoughts. It meant choosing which thoughts deserved his attention. After a few minutes, they reached a small hill inside the park. The old man stopped and pointed toward two men. One was running uphill, breathing heavily. The other was sitting on a bench, eating junk food while scrolling through his phone. Which one looks happier right now? The old man asked. The man on the bench, Arjun replied. Probably. But ask them again 5 years from now. Arjun smiled. He already knew the answer. The old man laughed. That's the difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure feels good now. Happiness feels good later. Scrolling is pleasure. Learning is happiness. Eating junk every day is pleasure. A healthy body is happiness. Sleeping through every alarm is pleasure. Building discipline is happiness. The problem is that most people sacrifice their future to protect their present comfort. They continued walking. After a while, the old man picked up an old mirror lying near a garbage bin. It was covered in dust. He handed it to Arjun. What do you see? My reflection. The old man smiled. No. You see dust. He wiped the mirror with his hand. Now what do you see? Myself. Exactly. Your mind works like this mirror. When it's covered with fear, excuses, comparison, and negativity, you cannot see your true potential. You don't need a new mind. You simply need to remove the dust. Arjun looked at his reflection for a long moment. How many years had he spent believing he wasn't capable? How many opportunities had he lost because he doubted himself before he even tried? The old man seemed to read his thoughts. Most limits exist only because you've repeated them long enough to believe they're real. Then he asked a question that made Arjun stop walking. If I gave you $1 million, but tomorrow morning you would never wake up again, would you accept the money? Arjun immediately replied. No. Of course not. The old man smiled. Interesting. So one ordinary day of your life is worth more than $1 million. Then why do people waste days so carelessly? They protect money. They protect their phones. They protect their reputation. But they throw away the most valuable thing they own. Time. You can earn money again. You can rebuild a business. You can even recover from failure. But yesterday is gone forever. The words hit Arjun harder than anything he had heard before. He suddenly realized he had never actually been wasting time. He had been wasting pieces of his life. The old man looked toward the rising sun. Every sunrise gives you two choices. You can repeat yesterday. Or you can build tomorrow. The world changes because of the people who choose the second option. As they reached the park gate, the old man stopped. Tomorrow, I won't teach you about time. I'll teach you about identity. Because the moment you change the answer to one simple question, who am I? Your habits will begin changing on their own. Arjun looked back at the path they had walked together. A few weeks ago, he had been searching for motivation. Now, he was slowly becoming someone who no longer needed it. For the first time in years, he wasn't chasing a better life. He was becoming a better person. And deep inside, that changed everything. Part 5, Become the person before you achieve the dream. The next morning, Arjun didn't wake up because he felt motivated. He woke up because it was becoming part of who he was. As he walked toward the park, he noticed something strange. The same road. The same trees. The same sunrise. Nothing around him had changed. Yet everything felt different. It wasn't the world that had changed. It was the way he was looking at it. The old man was waiting near the lake. Without saying a word, he handed Arjun a small piece of paper. It had only one question written on it. Who are you? Arjun smiled. My name is Arjun. The old man shook his head. That's your name. I'm asking who you are. Arjun thought for a moment. I'm someone who's trying to improve. The old man smiled again. No. You're still describing your actions. I'm asking about your identity. Arjun looked confused. The old man continued. Most people say, I want to become fit. I want to become rich. I want to become confident. But those are goals. They are not identities. He picked up a small acorn lying beneath a tree. Tell me. What does this become? An oak tree, Arjun replied. Exactly. Does it wake up every morning trying to become an oak tree? No. It simply grows according to what it already is. The old man looked directly into Arjun's eyes. People spend years chasing success without changing the person who is chasing it. And that's why they keep going back to old habits. Arjun stayed silent. The old man continued walking. Imagine two people are trying to quit smoking. The first person is offered a cigarette. He says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person is offered the same cigarette. He replies, "No thanks, I don't smoke." Do you hear the difference? Arjun nodded. The first person still believes he's a smoker. The second person has changed his identity. Real change begins the moment your identity changes. Those words echoed inside Arjun's mind. For years, he had been saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined." Maybe that was the problem. He still saw himself as an undisciplined person trying to change. The old man stopped near the lake. The question isn't, what do you want to achieve? The real question is, who do you need to become? If you become the right person, the results will eventually follow. They sat on a wooden bench. The old man pointed toward the water. "Look at your reflection." Arjun looked down. "What do you see?" "Myself." "Exactly. Every decision you make is slowly creating the person you'll see in that reflection 5 years from now. When you wake up early, you become someone who keeps promises. When you read instead of scrolling, you become someone who values growth. When you finish difficult tasks, you become someone who can be trusted. Success is never an event. It is an identity built one decision at a time. Arjun took a deep breath. For the first time, he understood why his old habits always returned. He had tried changing his actions without changing the person behind those actions. The old man smiled. "From today, stop saying, 'I have to study.' Instead say, 'I am a learner.' Stop saying, 'I have to exercise.' Say, 'I take care of my body.' Stop saying, 'I want to become confident.' Say, 'I am becoming someone who keeps promises to himself.' Your words become your beliefs. Your beliefs become your actions. And your actions become your destiny." The sun slowly climbed higher into the sky. The old man stood up. "I have one final lesson before we say goodbye." Arjun looked surprised. "Goodbye?" The old man nodded. "I was never meant to walk this journey for you. I was only meant to show you the direction. The rest, you must walk alone." A strange silence filled the air. For weeks, the old man had answered every question. Now Arjun realized the answers had never been the destination. They were only the beginning. Before leaving, the old man placed the same 2 tiny seeds into Arjun's hand. "The first day we met, I told you that every thought is a seed. Today, I'm reminding you that every decision is water. Protect your garden. Because the world will constantly try to plant weeds inside your mind." Arjun closed his hand around the seeds. "I won't forget." The old man smiled one last time. "I know. But remember, the greatest teacher you'll ever have is the voice inside your own head. Make sure it speaks with courage." As the old man slowly disappeared down the path, Arjun didn't feel afraid. For the first time, he trusted himself. Not because he had reached his destination, but because he had finally become the kind of person who would never stop walking toward it. He didn't need someone to push him anymore. He had learned to lead himself. And that was the real beginning of his new life. Part 6, The Choice That Changes Everything. A year passed. The park was still there. The same trees swayed with the wind. The same lake reflected the morning sunlight. The same bench stood quietly under the old banyan tree. But one thing was no longer the same. Arjun. He wasn't famous. He wasn't a millionaire. He hadn't become perfect. But he had become someone he could finally respect. He woke up before his alarm. He exercised even on days when he didn't feel like it. He read every day. He spoke English without being afraid of making mistakes. Most importantly, he no longer waited for motivation. He relied on discipline. One morning, as he walked through the park, he noticed another young man sitting on the same bench where he had once met the old man. The young man looked frustrated. His shoulders were down. His eyes were filled with disappointment. Arjun smiled. He walked over and sat beside him. After a few moments of silence, the young man finally spoke. "I think something is wrong with me." Arjun couldn't help but smile. Those were the exact words he had spoken 1 year earlier. "What makes you think that?" Arjun asked. "I make plans every night. But every morning I fail. I start things. I never finish them. I've watched hundreds of motivational videos. They inspire me for a few hours. Then everything goes back to normal." Arjun looked at the lake for a moment before answering. "I used to think motivation could change my life too. But I was wrong." The young man looked at him. "Then what changed you?" Arjun took a deep breath. "I stopped trying to change my life. I started changing my daily decisions. I stopped asking, 'How can I become successful?' And started asking, 'What would a successful person do today?' One decision. One habit. One promise. Every single day." The young man remained silent. Arjun reached into his pocket. Inside was an old notebook. The very same notebook where he had once written 4 goals and broken every one of them. He opened the first page. The words were still there. "My life is not controlled by my dreams. It is controlled by my daily decisions." He smiled. "Do you know what's funny? A year ago, I thought this notebook would change my life. But it didn't. My thoughts changed. My identity changed. My habits changed. And then, my life changed." The young man looked thoughtful. "So where do I begin?" Arjun pointed toward the rising sun. "Begin today. Not Monday. Not next month. Not next year. Today. Because tomorrow is the favorite word of people who never change." The young man slowly nodded. For the first time that morning, there was hope in his eyes. As he stood up to leave, Arjun called out to him. "Wait." The young man turned around. "Remember one thing. Your mind will never stop testing you. There will always be mornings when you want to sleep. There will always be days when you want to quit. There will always be moments when failure whispers louder than success. But every time you choose discipline over excuses, you become stronger. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build self-respect. And every time you take one small step, you prove to your mind that change is possible." The young man smiled. "Thank you." Arjun shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You made the decision to start." The young man walked away. Arjun watched him disappear down the same path where the old man had once walked away from him. At that moment, he finally understood the old man's greatest lesson. The purpose of a teacher is not to create followers. It is to create leaders. He looked up at the sky and quietly smiled. Somewhere, he hoped the old man would be proud. Because the student who once blamed the world had become the man who took responsibility for his life. And now, it's your turn. Maybe you saw yourself in Arjun. Maybe you've been waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe you've been telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. But here's the truth. Your future isn't waiting for you. It's being created by what you choose today. The life you dream about will never arrive through luck. It will arrive through discipline. Through consistency. Through the promises you keep when nobody is watching. 1 year from now, You'll either wish you had started today, or you'll be grateful that you did. The choice has always been yours. So when you finish this video, don't just feel inspired. Take one action. Read one page. Do 10 push-ups. Study for 30 minutes. Delete one distraction. Keep one promise to yourself. Because a better life never begins with one giant step. It begins with one small decision. Repeated every single day. If this story gave you a new perspective, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more videos that improve not only your English but also the way you think, make sure you subscribe to the English Academy and turn on the notification bell. Remember, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your mind. Protect it. Train it. Master it. Because once you master your mind, nothing else can master you. The end.